several of these big tech social media companies instituted children's safety policies or whatever 1 week before the hearing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit sus, right?
Ooh,
I know. I did that on purpose. I hope my kids watch it like, oh my goodness.
Real Dads Lead. And welcome to another episode of Real Dads Lead and Competing for Christ collab. I got Mr. Matt Hamilton and Big K, Kyle Smith with me. I'm your host, Dwayne Smith, and we're going to collab. So if you are watching, I'm going to actually post this on our Real Dads Lead site and our Competing for Christ site. So whichever one you're watching, hopefully this will be a nice time for you. So kind of excited to talk about this not new, but these governmental Senate hearings on social media. So that's kind of what the topic is for today. But before we get started, anything big happened to you guys over the last few days, or anything that you want to share with either of us of big things going on? Not much? Yes.
I'm subbing on Friday at Worthing Christian.
Oh, you're subbing. You got a teaching job.
Uh-huh.
Cool.
That's fun.
You excited about it?
English.
Oh, great. What year? I mean, is it high
12th
school?
grade. But they just said lesson plans on the desk. They have their own, they're just pretty much working independently. I'm just going to just sit there and watch them work for 4 hours.
Yeah, I doubt that. That's how you operate. You're going to be chatting and just knowing you anyway.
I hope, because when I was subbing at Reading, sometimes I when that was happening, when I was talking to the kids, like they could get a little rowdy, and I felt kind of bad. So this time I'm going to prepare myself. Like I'm just not going to set down the law, but just be like just not be as engaging, because I got respect for other teachers in the hallways, and who knows what's going on. Some people might be taking tests in other classrooms. They just need some quiet workspaces, and they should just do their work too. Yeah. But
You got a naturally loud voice as well.
Yeah.
Our whole family does, I think. We're pretty loud no matter what. Anybody who comes to our house, generally, they are like, man, why is it so loud here?
It is.
And then when him and his brothers get together, it's just like
It's bad.
super, super loud. But that's the way it is. Well, that's cool. I'm excited for that. Subbing. So things going well with you too, Matt?
Yeah, I think, yesterday I spoke in youth group. It was good. It was, I just always relish the opportunity, to influence. I think we had probably like 100 some kids show up last night and got to speak on purpose, on life purpose.
Oh, okay,
kind of a hot,
cool.
important topic, for Gen Z especially. Yeah. I mean, for anybody. But hoping it landed. So there seemed to be a good response.
Yeah. Well, that's a good transition into both of you talking about your influence on the younger generation. And that is what these Senate hearings that have been going on about social media is all about, trying to protect the kids, mostly protection from bullying, from sexual exploitation, from just getting involved in things that they shouldn't be getting involved in. I watched a few videos of some of the Senate hearings, and so if you guys don't know, the Senate has been interviewing the CEOs of major tech companies. So like the CEO of Instagram, CEO of TikTok, Facebook,
X soon.
Yes, X, and Twitch, and what is the one that
I don't even know what Twitch is. I never heard of that.
Streaming, yeah. And what's the one that we do with Chad? Do you remember that? Discord, yeah, Discord. So all of those different things. So there's a lot that's out there, and it's been interesting because I've been listening to or watching other people react to these things, and just kind of threw some things in my head that I thought, well, this would be a good topic to talk about, especially for dads out there who are younger dads who have kids that are coming up, and for teachers and coaches and things like that who are going to be mentoring these students as well. Me personally, on a personal level, I think that I failed as a father in this arena. So I know we've all talked before about, and I would love to hear comments one way or the other on when you think it's appropriate for a child to have, some of these social media platforms or these devices. So I've heard a lot about people talking about, my kids don't have a smartphone, they don't have a iPad or a tablet or anything like that, because I don't want them ever getting involved in certain things. And then you have the others who extreme, we're giving them whatever, whenever, and wherever. And then you have those in the middle, like there's a certain age. So where do you guys fall into that? Like, I know you don't have kids yet. You do. My kids are all grown, and we were kind of right in that midst of when it was first coming out. So when the kids had phones, they weren't smartphones in the beginning when they were younger. They were just flip phones, which were fine. And they had like DS systems that they could do some things on and communicate with others, but it wasn't as prominent or prevalent as it is now. So just get some initial thoughts on what you think is appropriate for, or what you've done with your kids, and what advice you would give parents out there, coaches and teachers.
That's a big question.
General thoughts. You have a lot. I already know that because I've talked to you about it. So.
Have we talked about this on the podcast before?
No, on the podcast.
Not at all?
Just,
okay. I mean, I think, long story short, I think that we should delay smartphones. I want to kind of put that in quotes, because there are certain smartphones that I think are appropriate and do a good job, like the Gab phone, for example. I right now have no problem promoting that among my friends and among other parents. So
explain that.
Well, the Gab phone is
GAB.
smart, but GABB. So it is smart, but it's extremely limited in what apps can be put onto the phone. So they've just approved some other apps. And I mean, if you're like super techie, you could probably find a backdoor, like if your kid is super techie. But that's going to be a very small population. Basically, both my girls have the Gab phone, and there's no social media on it whatsoever. There's not even email or anything like that, But it allows them to text and call, and I think they can even do video calls with their friends. There's like a Bible app, there's a finance app, there's certain restaurant apps, like if you want to go to McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, and you can even have something called Gab Music, which is essentially the same thing as Spotify, but everything explicit is taken out. Like there's no way to get anything like that on this phone. And my girls have done just fine. They've really enjoyed it. Now, there's other things that you can't use, at least currently. I think they are working on joining with some other apps like GroupMe. Do you guys know what GroupMe is? Mm-hmm. So GroupMe, unfortunately, is what kind of twisted our arm to get our first son a smartphone, because he started working at Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A was like, well, he's got to be a part of like 6 different GroupMe chats, because of these different teams. In order for him to work here. So we're like, man, we really didn't want to get him a smartphone, but he got the job, and we didn't know any other way. Like we were under the impression just operating with GroupMe on your computer wasn't going to be sufficient, so we caved and we got him the smartphone. That was a mistake.
At what age?
14.
Okay.
Yeah. because you can start working at 14 there. So anyway, now my next son started working at Chick-fil-A, and then my oldest daughter, she started working at Chick-fil-A, but we had issues with the boys, and so we said we're not getting an iPhone. Gab phone was now available. We went Gab, and she just accesses her GroupMe, and it's totally fine and works totally sufficiently on the computer. She can access her hot schedules, anything she needs to do with work. And this is important. This isn't just like I'm rambling. This is important for any parent who thinks that their kids might need a smartphone for work. You can work around that. You can absolutely. You just have to be a little bit more, scheduled. Like have them check their GroupMe and scheduling the night before work or that morning. They don't need a smartphone to do that. Gab phone, I think, is a significant option. And I'm also saying that because I read in the comments, many people are like, no smartphones, no social media, whatever. Just give them a flip phone kind of a thing. The problem with that is some of the most common features that kids love are interaction with their friends. You know what I'm saying? It's the fast texting and typing. It's the video calls, things like that. And some of these flip phones, they're just not practical for something like that. And it makes them feel stupid because they have a flip phone when their kids or their friends are carrying around these smartphones, which that's a shallow thing, but it's a teenage thing. And like, is that really a battle I want to fight if I don't have to? Gab phone is a smartphone, looks just like a smartphone, does everything they really need to do. It's sufficient. That's what I would. That's if I could go back, I'd have everybody do a Gab phone.
At what age?
Probably 14, or younger. Actually, my youngest daughter, she's 12, and we got her a Gab phone, and it's totally fine for her. Each of my kids have understood, like, if this gets out of control, whether on the Gab phone because they can't do anything explicit, that's not really an issue. But if you're just like out of control texting, talking, whatever, then we're gonna take that phone away. And it's not been an issue for them, the girls. But for like my boys who have iPhones, they were taken away at one point and then given back with the understanding that, if you're like, again, if whatever it is, if you're playing games all the time, or if like this certain music is we find you're listening to, you're gonna lose it. It's just going to be gone. I'm going to sell your phone, and you're going to have to buy a whole new phone by yourself, kind of a thing. And again, parents can say, well, like these parents are being irresponsible. Like it's not on the tech industries. It is on the tech industries, but it is also on the parents. But I think there's probably a lot of parents out there, a lot of adults out there who are commenting about parents that aren't parents themselves. And it's not as simple as just monitoring what your kids are doing on their phones. Kids are smarter than the parents are as far as technology goes, and they can get around things that you just don't know about. Like it's crazy how they can do it. And yeah. So anyway, I won't keep talking. Those are some of my initial thoughts. Yeah. It's a very complicated issue. Yeah. But I say hold out as long as you can, especially on things like iPhones. But Gab phone is a really safe, legit option.
Yeah. So Kyle, what do you think? And you can be blunt, because I already said that I feel like I failed in that area. So, giving you guys access, but just talk about any of the struggles that you might have had going through that, from the flip phone to smartphone, or the pressures that you might have felt with friends who had certain things. Touch on some of the things that Matt said. Your experience.
My experience? Yeah, I remember just growing up. Well, it's interesting to hear. One thing is that, like, you're saying how your daughter's 12 and she has a smartphone, even if it's a Gab phone. I just remember, even when I was a kid, a 12-year-old having any kind of phone was seen as crazy. Yeah. And that was my generation when I had a flip phone when I was, I think, 5th grade, and it had, it said Kyle on it. It's cool. But it said, but even I remember texting. Sorry, it doesn't matter. In 5th grade. In 5th grade, I think I was 11 years old, or I might have been 6th grade. I might have been 11 in 6th grade. I know I was 11. So it could have been 6th grade too. But I remember all the seniors all like Mason High, like all the people that were way older than me were just like, I can't believe I have a phone. Like even though it was a flip phone, they're just like, the fact that I had a phone was crazy to them, because like I didn't get a phone until I was a sophomore in high school, and there's like they're just they're comparing like this generation, all that. I was like, I have a flip phone. Like I have friends that have smartphones at like since like fourth grade, you know. And that was even that was early for us. Now you have kids with like 5 years old with smartphones. Like, dang, I don't know if this is good for these guys. You know, just your brain. Like I'm even as an adult. I sometimes I'm on mostly just YouTube. I'm just like, I don't know if this is good for me. Like I'm like thinking that cognitively. I was like, I don't know if I could. And to think that 5-year-olds are going through that process right now, like they're crying, phone. Like that is not good. Like I could say like, what is too early? I know 5-year-olds is way too early. At least when it comes to that conversation.
So you would think 5-year-olds are too early for like any kind of device, like having a device, or like, because I was guilty of it, and I know, lots of parents are probably guilty of it. Like you're saying, here, take this and calm down so I can have some peace. Right, when you're driving in on a trip or whatever. When I was growing up, we didn't have any of that stuff. Actually, when I was growing up, we did have my dad built this like in the back of our van or the back of our truck, we would have a TV. And at that time, you could get the airwaves, so antenna thing, so we could watch some of the TV while we were driving. But it was like a little black and white little television. So that's always existed. Try and figure out a way to keep them occupied and quiet while, instead of every second, are we there yet? Or just complaining or fighting with each other or what have you. So I can see the benefits of it, but I also see that, we don't do, like we used to play games and all that stuff on our trips, looking at license plates and trying to see how many license plates we could get. And,
pick a color and how many cars has that color.
All those little things that you kind of lose that family bonding time. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, but you think that 5-year-olds too early to have a device?
Yeah, well,
I would think to own it, but I don't know if like there are.
Well, I could say if they're going to watch something, I think the parent has to be there, and not just here. Okay. And then like even if it's a good show or a good program or whatever or good app, like I just would much rather have the parent be by their side while watching it, because it's just too much. Like if I'm like, it's just too much power, I think, to give a kid that young. I remember Ubering this one time. This mom just a 5-year-old son and I think maybe a 3-year-old daughter, and they're just crying. I was like, tablet. They're just screaming tablet, and they're kids, and just gave them the tablets, and then the whole time they're listening to the girl was listening to some, like, I don't know what it was, some show I'd never heard of before, but it seemed pretty innocent. The guy was watching this Tobey Maguire cussing compilation, and I was just Ubering. I was just like, are you okay with your son listening to this? Because Mrs. Weatherby, one of my Spanish teachers, said more is caught than taught. Like, you, like, that stuff is like ingrained in your head. Like, these are, like, they're not, to this person, this kid, all these words, they're not seen as bad words. They're just words, And even if they might know it's bad, why would you think it's bad when your parents sitting next to you and just like listen, like willingly letting you listen to this kind of garbage. What Mr. Rogers says, bombardment. It's like, it's just not good. And so I think even then, like I said earlier, I think the parent should be involved in, like, even if they're with the kid. But if they're with the kid, they should be very careful. Like, it's like, hey, sorry, that's not good, and like, let's do something else together.
That's assuming that the parent has that moral compass.
That's assuming, yeah. And I hope that most parents do. But for my personal experience, I know I feel like I talk a lot. I'm sorry, but my relationship with like social media, for example, I personally wasn't prepared to have an app like Instagram, for example. I think 7th grade is when 7th or 8th grade is when I first got Instagram, and it was a great tool. I just wanted to, part of it, just want to fit in. Everyone had it, and it was cool. It's cool to share your own life and just watch other people's lives. It was just a way that we socially interact with each other outside of school. Like, we're still in contact with each other. It was a lot of fun. But I don't think I was prepared for it, because even with all the good it came with it, there's a lot of bad for it. That was my first time I was introduced to pornography. Like, I saw, like,
Through Instagram?
Through Instagram. And I just remember that Instagram was my gateway drug into that world of pornography. And it got so bad where I was like, I'm tired of this. Like, this is not who I want to be, you know? And so I deleted it. I was a freshman in high school, and I deleted the app. And I never for like 8 years I'd never had it again. The only reason I got it recently. It was my senior year of college. Mostly because, you know, like I said, it's not a terrible.
Mm-hmm.
There's good stuff.
There's good stuff on it, but I wasn't capable of like handling that. Like I was using it for bad purposes. Like, I use Instagram mostly to satisfy my own desires, not just simply to connect with friends and seeing what's going on. But my senior year of college, like, I'm going to be gone. Everyone that I knew and loved, like, I'm never going to really see them again. We all live in different states. And so I was like, I'll just get Instagram. And I think now I'm better for it, because I don't really care too much about, like, I don't really, honestly, like, I go on it just to check on people. And even that's not all the time. I don't live on Instagram. I check on it and then I'm off it. Like, it's because I live so long without Instagram. There's no internal desire to be on it all the time. And I think for me, that was a very helpful experience, just to, you know, I just needed to get away from it. I had no desire even really to get on it until I was about to leave college. And I was just like, oh.
Did you feel like you were missing out? Like, people would say, something to you in person and say, and you like, oh, I had no idea. And like, oh, it was on Instagram. Or like, did you feel like you missed out on stuff when you were in that?
I'm sure there's a time that there came a point where I think most people just knew I didn't have Instagram, because and so because Luke had an Instagram, and people shared things with him.
You guys were together, so he could tell you.
Yeah,
but it's a little bit different. Yeah,
but Luke didn't really tell me anything. I think people just knew I didn't have an Instagram, because Luke and I are so close. It's like, if I was like, people would tag people in things. Luke could never really tag me in anything because I didn't have an Instagram to be tagged in. Mm-hmm. And so I think most people knew I just didn't have an Instagram. I'm sure it was tough at a time, but I just don't remember that experience. That was so long. Like, it was like 8 years of my life I had no Instagram. I was just like, it was just, yeah.
So besides that, is there other things that you see, like on these hearings? One of the ones was with Josh Hawley, I think, and the Senate was talking to Zuckerberg, whose Facebook is Instagram, right? Instagram.
Meta, yeah. They're all connected.
Yeah. Meta, yeah, and Instagram. And talking about how there's a bunch of kids, basically, who have either committed suicide or have 12 total. And their parents were like at the hearing or whatever, and had pictures of the and I don't know if it was bullying or I don't know exactly what was going on, but the idea that Instagram itself has influenced these kids in a way that they can't live up to something, or they're being bullied, or some kind of way they are dissatisfied with their own life because of it. Did you feel any of that kind of stuff, or have you noticed, or when in your youth group or anything, that people who have struggled through Instagram or other social media stuff? Like, have your girls or their friends seem to like, I have to have this because this is happening, or I have to be doing this because this is happening?
Because there were parents who, for example, were saying that their girls struggled with bulimia or anorexia because
they're trying to live up to
exactly. Yeah.
And a lot of those things, especially, I don't know, it's like Snapchat. I don't know if the CEO of Snapchat was on there, but they have all these different filters and things like that. You're trying to make yourself look.
Right. And wasn't there something recently where you weren't allowed to use those filters anymore?
Not that I know of.
I heard something about that. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of, it's fake, right? But it's kind of these social media platforms we are allowing them to define for our children what beauty looks like, right? What success looks like. Like really, I mean, like their worldview on so many different issues is being developed by these social media accounts. Right. Every kid that I know that is on a social media platform, that's happening to them in one way or another. And then, it's difficult because different psyches are going to interact with that material in different ways, which is why some kids end up killing themselves or, having eating disorders and others don't, and it's not to say that those others that are not going to those extremes are not negatively affected. They are. Their psyches just don't take them to that point. Does that make sense? But overall, it's just not a good thing. I don't want content creators on Facebook or Instagram defining for my children what a successful life as a man or woman looks like, right? Or what they should look like or look for in a man or a woman or anything like that, like that. But that's exactly what's happening. And this is where it gets back to the parents. Parents should be instilling that information and the proper worldviews into their children. And they can't do it all themselves, which is why they need to be part of larger communities, such as churches. But that being said, the power of social media, of their influence, it's a serious competitor to parents. Serious I don't know. I don't know that. Yeah, short of just cutting it out of their lives for now, like you were saying, because teens just aren't mentally and emotionally ready to be doing things like that. It's a fact that our brains are not really fully developed until about 25. How old are you?
Not 25.
Oh no,
not fully developed yet.
I don't know that he should be part of this conversation.
Disregard everything I'm saying, guys.
Yeah. So. Obviously, when they leave the home, you can't control what they do. But the fact that their brains and their emotions, and their hormones are everywhere at this time makes them a prime candidate for obtaining poor information and getting addicted to things. And so I do just revert back to my first answer that I think that we need to keep them away from social media as much as possible. If you can truly monitor it, then you should. But again, I don't know that much about Instagram. I don't know how to monitor it. I don't know how often stuff comes out. I don't know how it works.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's funny because we got an Instagram account for our Competing for Christ podcast, and I know you guys. I'm seeing your kids on Instagram, so they have an account. Somebody of you, at least Corbin does, and I've seen your wife on it, and things like that, and. So it's to me, it's a hard line because, and that was another thing. I listened to the Clay and Buck show on the radio, and they were talking about this issue, and they were talking about themselves. You're like, this is not just a kid problem. A lot of adults also are struggling with it and are on their phones all the time, and they're not just as much to blame, but they are not setting the proper example. And it is difficult. I find myself every once in a while and I'm not as big on social media, but I am on my phone
YouTube
a ton, and I love YouTube, and it can be just as, just watching other people doing. I mean, generally they try and cater it to, and that is another thing that they're trying to do in these Senate hearings. They're trying to limit this, like, you're like feeding. This is the things that they're interested in, giving them more, giving them more, giving them more. This is what they're interested in, and that's how it is with YouTube too.
The algorithm is set to kind of see your preferences and feed them to you.
Now, fortunately, my preferences are pretty wholesome, and so I get a lot of
Perry Mason. Yeah,
I get a lot of I do get a lot of. Not Perry Mason, but Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes.
I do.
And let's be clear, this is the Sherlock Holmes from the 50s or
Yes.
60s, right?
Yeah,
Black and white.
50s, the black and white shows. Yeah, I do get a lot of that.
I like black and white. Sorry.
Me too.
I like black and white. I grew up watching Little Rascals, like black and white.
I love that.
Andy Griffith Show.
Andy Griffith Show, black and white. And Dad got me into Leave It to Beaver. Now it's black and white.
Yeah.
Like, I like those shows. Those early shows. I never saw I Love Lucy.
I was just going to say I Love Lucy. The earlier ones are good.
Yeah, I never seen them, but they were always on right next to the Leave It to Beaver. It was like always on.
My kids love those as well.
Yeah, they're good. They're just good shows.
Yeah.
Same reason why I like Hey Arnold. I love Hey Arnold.
Hey Arnold, football head.
I love that show. But that's it. Sorry, keep going.
I just think so. Clay and Buck were talking about the problem also, and they admitted themselves. They're like, I'm not perfect on this. I would love to be able to, like, all right, at night, just my phone is somewhere I don't even touch it, or at the dinner table, we can have rules like, all right, there's no phones at the dinner table, and when we're going out to a restaurant, there's no phones. We don't get our phones out. But those are the kind of things that sometimes we try to institute, like when we're out as a family sometimes. But then when you are just talking, something comes up in your head and immediately think, oh, let me show you this.
Yeah, right.
Pull your phone out so I can show you.
And then they pull theirs out.
Yeah, and then next thing you know, they're out again.
Right.
You're thinking, because your brain is already thinking about things that you have seen, or and things are so easily to pull up. Or there's a lot of times where you are just talking and you're wondering about something, and it's like, oh, let me Google it. I can find that right away. The information is just right there at your fingertips. So you pull your phone out, and so I just struggle with this total. I don't know exactly where the line for me is. Like I said, there are good things, and like I said, we're recording this. You're watching this on YouTube,
On a smartphone.
on your smartphone or on your device. You are, Kyle's been setting up our Instagram account for the Competing for Christ, and it's just, I don't know. I just kind of, you just have to monitor it, and I do think that, as you were saying, it's not just the parents. It is some of these social media companies have to be held a little bit responsible, or at least give us tools where, and I do think that that's happening a little bit. The tools where the parents can monitor or give permission or things like that. But also, as you said, there can be a workaround.
They did say. I think Lindsey Graham's opening statement talked about how several of these big tech social media companies instituted children's safety policies or whatever 1 week before the hearing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We have the policies.
Yeah, it's a bit sus,
I
right? I know. I did that on purpose. I hope my kids watch it like, oh my goodness.
Sus. That's funny.
That's like the only one that I understand, They're like Riz and whatever else. I'm like, I don't even know.
Honestly, wait, I didn't know what Riz was either. It was so weird. I was like, because it was just always out of nowhere, just was everywhere. Riz. I was like, did I miss something? I was so confused. Like, Riz, I looked up, what is Riz? Riz is like, the more they explain, it's like, I don't really understand it still. now I understand it. I understand now, but it's like I literally was just like over and over. I was like, "What is this? What is Riz?"
Do you have Riz?
Oh, I have a lot of Riz. Not kidding. Not kidding. Riz. Well, that's a good question. I don't really know what it is by definition.
It is a part of charisma. And it's the Riz part of charisma.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just so like if
I looked it up.
Jive. It's I didn't know that, but like Riz. When I would think of Riz, like whenever someone just like like super charismatic, and people are just like just drawn to you just because of just your character and your charisma. Yeah, but.
Yeah, most of those words seem to be like just partials of other words. Generally, that's what I've been finding out. Like sus.
What's the possessive partial of suspect?
Suspect.
Yeah.
Suspicious.
Suspicious.
Yeah. So, at any rate, now I'm
Dad's
trying
hip.
to be more hip. And so, yeah.
Is jive a word that in your generation, hip and jive?
Oh yeah.
We should bring that back.
Jive.
Let's do it right now.
Yeah, jive.
There's a lot of things that I thought about that with different words. So
I heard a mom say groovy the other day. I was like,
that's so groovy.
yeah, it reminds me of Phil Collins' song "Groovy Kind of Love." I love that song.
never heard it.
Never. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful song.
It's a groovy kind of that one.
Yeah, that's one. So, anything else that you can think of that you want to mention? Because you've done not only with Instagram for that 8 years, but you've also taken a break from YouTube as well, right? Before, at times. Mm-hmm. And what are the reasons for those? Like when you do take a break, what are the reasons?
Well,
generally?
like I said, like even for me, YouTube, like I never had a problem with YouTube the way I had with Instagram in terms of sexual temptations. My biggest problem with YouTube is just time consuming.
Yeah.
And this is gonna be funny. I wonder how your guys' reaction to this. There's one time I listen to things double speed all the time. And there's one time I was just like, dude, I watched so much YouTube today. I was telling my friends this, and then just looked up like how many hours you spent on YouTube today. And we looked it up. It was 9 hours of YouTube in that day. It was like 6:00 in the evening when we saw each other, and so I was just like, I'm sick because
It does make you feel sick.
It's
too long in front of a screen.
It's not just 9 hours; it was 18 hours worth of content.
Because you're double speed.
Yeah, everything was double speed. I watched 18 hours worth of content, and I was like, dude, what? This is not good. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, I mean, for more than anything, and kind of like you just feel sick. You just have to take a break. You know, not even just just complete detox from, because it's YouTube is not bad, Instagram's not bad, but how you use it can be bad. You know, and just take a break. There's a time in college we had this assignment to no more like we had to put, everyone in the class had a choice like to eliminate one thing from their life, and then for a month, and then document the entire experience of what that was like for them. And I chose YouTube because that was a very it wasn't as bad when it was like 18 hours worth of content in that one day. It wasn't that bad, but it's still something I wanted to get better at even when I was in college. And so when I was so I chose YouTube, and I didn't realize, and we had to do it for a month. We documented our experience, and I didn't realize in that time how often I thought about just going on YouTube all the time. Like even when I thought my problem was even that bad, it was still pretty bad. Like I woke up and I was like, dang, all I wanted to do is watch a YouTube video or just go on the app. I was like, I can't. Like I don't even have the app. So I was like, that's crazy, you know? And then I was like, and then I took a shower, and normally I like listen to something while I'm in the shower off YouTube, like anything, like whatever. I was like, I have to sit in the shower in silence. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is kind of crazy. And then I got done with the shower, and then I was walking over to Alpha, which is our school cafeteria at Grace College. And normally on my way over there, because it's like at the time it was super cold. Like I just one way to keep my mind off the cold was just play a video, and just listen to it. Like I didn't watch it because it was so cold, but I was just like listen to it, and I was like I can't even do that. And I was like my whole morning was just silence and silence and silence, and I was just thinking like the whole time I was just like this is kind of crazy. Like I think about this app all the time, not this app, but just this way of entertainment, like always on my brain. And that first, it was a painful experience, like it wasn't a very uncomfortable experience for me. And the reason why we did it is because it was a psych class, but we were studying people. We got to go to AA meetings and stuff like that. We're people who are recovering addicts, or and we're just like when we're doing that, like we were finding our way of like how hard, like it's really hard to recover from things. Like there aren't chemically addictive, say like alcohol, for example. And so or it's in the same way alcohol is. And so that's kind of how the experiment kind of went out. And it was a really cool experience. It was very thoughtful. It was like every day you just recorded your thoughts every day. And I loved it. But through that experience, you also realize how much time that you waste just not spending time with God. And it's like when I think about YouTube, like I woke up thinking YouTube. I went to the shower thinking YouTube. I walked over to breakfast thinking YouTube. I probably walked back thinking YouTube because you walk there, you have to walk back, and it's like, and the whole time I was like, I just like this is it was an uncomfortable, painful experience, but also a great experience because I just realized how much I didn't, what's the word, how much I neglected my relationship with God, at least through His Word, through prayer, or just through conversations with other people, and so it was a very good experience for me.
So are you saying that, and like we said, there are good things on this YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. So are you saying that you were more drawn to the things that were time wasters? Because you can, watch sermons on YouTube. You can listen to Bible Project on YouTube. You can do all this other stuff. So it's not like, you can't actually spend time with God on YouTube. Mm-hmm. But you were drawn to other things that are just more entertaining or what?
Well, to be honest, that's what's entertaining. I literally listened. Like I know,
but I'm saying when you were on campus, you weren't thinking, "Oh, Bible Project." You were thinking, or you're in the shower. Is that what you were thinking? Like, oh, I'm wasting time, not spending time with God because of all this YouTube I'm watching.
I'm not. Sometimes I feel like sometimes I was thinking yeah, I don't know. I feel like there was times where I wasn't like, even if there's good like say sermons or Bible Project or any biblical voice out there on the platform, like there was times even then I was thinking of that during my fast, mostly because I went to a Christian college. There was just conversations about God or Jesus, and like just made me think about things I watched in the past, but not all the time. Like there's things like kind of like you're talking about being at at a restaurant and we're talking about something and then like, oh, watch this video, like this, like it just anything that just naturally came up, like it just sparked either something that had a more biblical focus to it or not. Even if it wasn't bad, it was just something just otherly than
someone pops in your head. This is what Kyle does to me. Like he'll think of something and it reminds him of an anime, and I was like, "Oh, Dad, watch this." Uh-huh. He'll show me this scene of an anime, whatever, and then after that scene's done, maybe this one's better, and it might be something I'm interested in. Sometimes I'm not. I'm just okay.
Yeah.
He'll say, "Last one, I promise. Last one, I promise."
Everything for me is connected. That's how my brain kind of works. Like, yeah.
No, I totally understand. So I have another question for you, and for those guys who, let's say, on the coaching side, because I can picture being on your bus, like when you had national championship stuff and you're going from Indiana to Florida or or South Carolina, long trip. I mean, can you just imagine not having a phone?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think that, I mean, growing up, we didn't have phones going to Colorado, you know?
I know, but now that we have them.
No, but it's like, can you imagine? Like, I can imagine it.
Yeah.
But it's
Can you imagine it being enjoyable without a phone?
yeah. Even those car rides going, like, say Colorado, like, I don't need a phone to have fun with. Like, it's fun just to being with your. The only times that we, like, most of the time, like, actually most of those car rides or those bus rides we had, like, say those 18-hour trips from Florida back to Grace, Indiana. Most of it was either we're sleeping or we're waking up talking to each other. Like we're having a good time. Like, we didn't have, like, the only time we were on, like, someone was on their phone or I was on, like, it was only when everyone around you sleeping, and it's like, well, I'm awake, you know. So it's like, it's a way to pass the time until someone gets up. Boom, fine. Like, finally, we have a way to conversate with somebody.
Yeah, and that's more enjoyable than
being because people are more fun.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrapping up, what Matt, could you just kind of think of some things that just highlight some suggestions on what would you suggest? You talked a little bit about the devices, but just as far as like family policy, some of the things that would help that we can just leave them with.
Family policy. What do you mean by that? Like, what to do with devices? Like rules?
Yeah, like rules. So I would think that just you and your spouse should probably make a decision at an early age. This is what we're going to do. That's something, again, I mean, Jill and I talked about it, you know, and like the first phones that they got were Christmas phones, you know, those flip phones. It was for Christmas. We all got new phones, and we're like, hey, well, let's get them this. And it was more or less so we can keep tabs on them because they were in sports and stuff and on a lot. And we can,
But there was no threat of addiction to the phone itself or to some kind of social media side at that time. Right.
And then later the smartphones that we had, and we were doing the Life 360 app just so we can keep tabs on. And it was more or less we in our minds thinking that they won't be getting involved in these things that are harmful and just using the things. And I think conversing with your kids is important on that. I know a lot of my boys have said, you know, I'm struggling with this, you know, whether it's pornography or whatever, and can you help me? And you know, we did do some of the other things, so there are apps or things, because you have to do it with your computers as well, probably. So what kind of just advice, I guess, would you give, or some steps that they could possibly take? Things that you guys have done. You have another one coming up, Elias. So
he's got some time.
Yeah.
I will not be giving him a smartphone or tablet at the age of 5 or 3.
Would you not let him use one?
Probably not.
Not even use it.
I probably wouldn't either.
I mean, because it's got
educational kind of stuff.
Educational things.
I mean,
on
kids
it.
have been being educated for millennia before that, you know, and we've seen brilliant minds, you know, in the past before any kind of smartphone ever existed. It's not necessary, and given the, you know, what it can do to brain development, etc., all these studies that are coming out, it's just not worth it. But in addition to that, you know, when my kids were young, we gave them, I think I have said this on the podcast before, we gave them a kids Fire tablet, a Kindle, for reading, for school, for homeschool, you know, and you know, there was a couple games on there. It's a kids Kindle, you know, so it's like there's not like access to everything, but even on some of their games that they were playing, like FIFA or something like that, there were advertisements, animated advertisements that were sexual in nature, you know, and I inadvertently exposed my kids to that because I assumed that being a children's tablet, it would be fine, and it wasn't fine. It's just not necessary. I mean, I should have just given them books to read. There was something about the convenience of, like, you have Hoopla. I can just order digital books and they can read them right there. We don't have to go about the trouble of going back and forth from the library and whatever. Like, that was our motivation. I would not do it again. Yeah, and something we've not mentioned today is the fact that this is true again for adults as well. I don't know if you've noticed it, but whenever somebody spends a significant amount of time in front of a screen, whether it's on their phone or just the television or your computer, something happens. I don't know the science behind it, especially if they're just being entertained, that when they walk away, there's an irritability and there's a selfishness that is involved. I see this all the time. And I wonder if it's because you're just kind of in this passive state where you are being served. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm getting what I want. And now I'm back to real life, and there are demands on me to serve other people or to do things that require more effort, right? And I'm irritable and I'm snappy. And so I've also seen that in our kids over and over again. It's just another reason to avoid it. So again, if I do give my kids phones, obviously I said I gave the youngest I've given a phone was 12, but it's only because the Gab phone was available. She has zero access to any internet. She has zero access to any kind of social media whatsoever. But it's still a fun thing for her to do. It's just totally safe, And you can opt in or out of Gab Music. It's like $5 extra a month. She doesn't do it, but she gets to talk to her friends. She gets video call, she's got a Bible app. And I mean, there's like 100 some apps on there. Like, I don't want to sell it short, but they're all safe, So I would highly recommend Gab phones to people. We're not sponsored by Gab. I don't know if we should say that. We're really not. Yeah.
Gab, if you're out there and you want to.
Yeah, no, I really do highly recommend it. Again, both my girls have it, and they're totally fine. Neither of them are addicted to their phones, which has been a beautiful thing. And I would also say, just I do think I've heard some people. Let me just say this: I definitely think it's a good thing to take the kids' phones away, whatever kind of phone it is, even if it's just a texting, calling app. I think it's a good idea to take it away at night. We're not gonna, and it's not. I think it's probably important to say it's not because we don't trust you, but it's because we want what's best for you. It's just not a good thing to have your phone in your room at night. You're looking at the screen, you're scrolling. It's not good for your sleep. It's not good for your emotions. But then the added temptation, if you have a smartphone, the things that you can see, in the middle of the night, and the temptations that arise for adults as well.
Right.
It's just not a good thing. Like, I know adults, I think a known name would be John Eldridge, who wrote A Wild at Heart. It's a policy for he and his wife to not have their phones in the room at nighttime. Just because they don't want the temptation of being before a screen before they sleep, right? They actually make it a priority to spend time with the Lord before they go to bed, right? So, like, the screen temptation is gone. I'm going to spend time in prayer and in reviewing my day, and it's just a much healthier nightly routine, So I say take your phones away. We actually take our kids' phones away and the computers and put them in the safe at nighttime. We get them back out, the computers for school, and then later in the day when they're done with the school, they can have their phones for a time. There's also a cutoff in the evening time when phones have to be turned in because we're going to be going to bed.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good idea. If your kid has access to social media sites, so again, this is not a Gab phone, but a typical iPhone.
Or
I would
Android, yeah.
Yeah, right. I would say, are you saying that because yours is an Android?
Yeah.
I don't want to exclude you. I'm sorry.
That's another.
I'm not a diehard Apple fan, I promise. Not letting them be, ideally not letting them be secluded with that phone. Whether it's, we try to keep our kids, like, for example, out of the basement. Like if we're talking to the girlfriend or something like that, I don't want you staying down there forever scrolling and listening to whatever, like even if it's on Spotify, like there's a bunch of trash on Spotify, podcast wise, for example. So, no seclusion, phones in by a certain time, no phones in the bedrooms at night, no phones like in your pocket all day long. It's after school that you get it. We're homeschooled, so there's maybe a different way to talk about that if your kids are at school.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like if I were to go to school today, if my kids were in a public school today, I want to say that I just wouldn't give them a phone.
Yeah.
The fear of many parents is, well, what if there's a school shooting?
Right.
I need to get a hold of my kids. There are school shootings, but when you consider all the schools that are out there in the United States, it is a very small percentage of schools that have ever experienced anything like that. Your kids are going to be fine. And they also have, policies in place if something like that were to happen. And increasingly more schools are having sheriffs, and whatever. It's just not something I would worry about. But if you really do, I would give them like a family phone that's like, it's a what are those, a prepaid phone, something like that you can't do anything socially on whatsoever, and it's not convenient to be texting on. It's just strictly for calling. I would send them to school with something like that, personally. Okay. The other thing I think that we should do, this is my last comment, I think, the other thing I think that we should do that we've not really touched on. We talked about the negatives with smartphones and social media access, but we didn't really talk about the tech companies themselves. Pressure is being put on them to, open themselves up to being sued, like being responsible or held responsible. They are responsible, but they're not being held responsible. And again, I'm not saying that it's all the tech company's fault. That's not true. A huge percentage of this is on the parents, and it's neither. It's not one or the other. It's both and, like that needs to be heard. But I think that we should join the chorus of people who are applying pressure to make them liable to being sued, and I also think that we should push for reform so that these companies are absolutely blocking, because they can. We've seen them censor things in the past with ease and within minutes or hours. They need to, we need to apply pressure that they block everything sexual on there, everything, and anything explicit whatsoever just shouldn't be permitted. Like, the only reason that you would have something on there like that is money. Right, like money, or even something more devious. Like, you're supporting the activity. Like pedophiles networking on Facebook. like that. There should be nothing like that happening. Whatsoever. My kids should never, as they're scrolling through Facebook, Instagrams, get some random post or reel from somebody that is sexual in nature, amidst just the funny TikTok, not TikToks, they don't have TikTok, but the funny reels, that are coming up that are totally innocent. Like, where did that come from? That should never, ever happen. They need to crack down on that, and we know that they can. We should hold them responsible to do it. I do think it's impractical to say just get rid of Facebook and Instagram and whatever. And not just impractical, but I don't know that it's even best, because as we said before, there's a lot of good stuff on there. Those platforms are reasons why and maybe we have an alternative platform, like Rumble or something like that. Maybe those continue to grow. And I don't even know if those are totally great, but it's because of platforms like that, for example, The Chosen has gotten as big as it has, or people are more aware today about sex trafficking, the ills of sex trafficking, and like how to help fight it and overcome it. We're more aware of that today, and we're more in unison and accomplishing things against it today because of platforms like these, because of social media platforms. There's a ton of good that's happening. So I don't know that the answer is just to get rid of it. The answer is open them up to being sued, to being held responsible, and parents and politicians uniting to say no sexual content, no explicit content of any nature can appear on these whatsoever. And any ill, malicious networking, it must also be stopped. I mean, like immediately. And if it's not, because you're now open to being sued, you will be sued. That's what I think should happen.
Okay. What do you think, Kyle? You agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, good. I think this is a productive conversation, and those who are watching or listening, please leave some comments and experiences that you may have had with your kids, with students on the social media front. I know that this school, Worthington Christian, your school, you guys had like caddies or something, right? When you went into a classroom, you had to put your cell phone in a caddy or something.
Like a basket.
I don't remember doing that. I don't remember doing that in the high school, but I remember doing that earlier. Yeah, I think middle school.
Oh,
I don't think
really?
they ever had that in high
I
school.
think they had it in high school because there's a
They might
few
have been Chad.
times someone, because you guys would like, I left my phone in the caddy.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And you'd come home, you didn't have it, or
Yeah.
whatever, and you're like, and usually it was always on the weekend, like you left it on a Friday.
Yeah. Like, no phone till Monday.
Yeah, it was automatic. Like, oh well.
Well, I really didn't care about my phone all that much. It was,
Yeah.
I probably should have more, but yeah.
But if you have comments that you can leave, and just stories that you may have, please leave those. If you're listening from the Competing for Christ site, or if you're doing it from the Real Dads Lead, we'd love to hear those comments and respond. We'll respond in kind. So thank you guys so much for your time and listening. Thank you guys so much for your time.
How you going to close us out? You going to say Real Dad's Lead, or are you going to say...
I should do two things. I was like, always remember that Real Dads Lead.